Hey, what's up guys, Jace2Cents here, and I'm bringing you a bonus video about how to install something in my Audi R8. This is a video I'm actually making for a forum that I post on frequently called R8 Talk. I recently installed the MadTrace Magnetic Paddle Shifters for the R8/Audi TTRS, and a lot of the forum members said they'd love to see a video on how to do this because it can be kind of scary. So I'm making this video for them, and I'm putting it up here for you guys to watch because you might find it interesting. Okay, so the MadTrace Magnetic Paddle Shifters are basically a GT style, very heavy duty, very clacky mechanical magnetic shifter. The shifters that come in the car are pretty sad. They are some of the worst, mushiest paddle shifters you would ever feel. I mean, these are them right here. You know, even though this car shares heritage and lineage and exactly the same platform as a Huracan, a Lamborghini Huracan, everything in the Lamborghini is obviously better than what Audi put in here in terms of just a lot of the functionality and shifters and stuff. So what a lot of people have been doing is changing out the shifter type from other models. The Urus shifters is very common, but the MadTrace are awesome because they use the magnetic mechanical shifter mechanism, which replaces the entire thing. So as you can see, mine are already installed. Oh, and I'm wearing this mic because we forgot our normal mic, so at least we have this backup. My audience is usually PC-centric. I'm also got a bunch of car people watching this that may not be PC-centric. But for my PC folks out there, to give you an example of the difference and how this is gonna feel, these are like super mushy $10 membrane keyboard from like Amazon. And what we're installing is like a very high-end, very firm, very tactilely clicky mechanical switch. You remember when we did our racing sim and I showed you guys all of the new paddle shifters and stuff that are on our wheel and how we were flipping out about that? So you can see we got the F1 wheel installed.
I love these shifters, man.
They're so good. So obviously in the box you get the mechanism with the mechanical paddle shifters. Mine are already installed, but the process I'm going to show you is identical for whether or not the stock ones are in, or these are in, or any other brand is in. The beginning to finishing procedure is exactly the same. But I just want to show you what also comes in the box. You get some extra screws which are used to mount the carbon fiber paddles to the shifter mechanism itself. You get the appropriate sized Allen key with a ball end. That way you can get at it at various angles if you need to. And you get two short carbon fiber paddles. So I chose to leave the long ones on because it's very nice to be able to reach them from anywhere you are on the steering wheel with your hands, and because they turn with the wheel, it's just nice to know where they are. But these are short ones in case you don't want them sticking up so far. So it's nice that you get both of these, and yes, these are real carbon fiber, which is very nice. And the overall price of these, I got this for 295 bucks for the shifters. Now that was including the R8 Talk group buy discount. It's probably over by the time you guys are seeing this video, but it's worth mentioning. $295 upgrade to something on this car that should have come this way from the beginning, not a bad purchase. So anyway, moving on. Here are the tools that you're gonna need. Obviously, you're gonna need your key. We need a 10mm box end wrench. I've got a little cut off hooked dental pick type of tool. This will be used for undoing connectors. It'll come in very handy. One straight pick, a heavy duty one that won't bend too easy. This is gonna be for getting off the airbag. A T10, and I believe a T25. It's either a T25 or a T20. And you're also gonna need some sort of thick piece of paper or plastic or something sheet-wise. These are just the stickers that came with my Scott Oman Stage 2 Öhlins TTRX, or TTX's suspension that's on the car, and then a light of some sort. So this is my light bar. My wife actually bought me this for Christmas. So step number one is gonna be to pop your frunk, because we're gonna have to disconnect the negative battery terminal. That is so that we don't get an airbag light, because we are gonna be removing the airbag. That's gonna be probably the hardest part people have with this whole project is the airbag removal. I'll show you some tips on getting it out. When the battery is disconnected, if you close the frunk, you're gonna have a heck of a time pulling out body panels to get to the release cable for the frunk. Put a rag or something over the latch. That way if you out of habit or someone comes to shut it, it won't latch. Just a cloth or something, fabric, that's fine. So now that the frunk is open, we're gonna go ahead and turn on the accessory. We turn it on to release the steering wheel lock. That way we'll be able to turn the wheel, but we're obviously gonna be undoing the battery. So if we go ahead and turn it off now and leave the door open, you can see it's still unlocked. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go in here and we're going to disconnect the negative battery terminal. All right, so this next part is the part where I basically curse out Audi because they should have just made a bigger access panel to the battery. This is really stupid, this little slit. Like, I don't know what this is supposed to be. So anyway, you have the negative battery post on the left. You also have the big post sticking off of it. This is for jumpering it. We need to get that off. So the way I'm doing this is just taking the box end, sticking it straight on there, and then just rotating it. So as you can see, I can get enough rotation to turn that. So now that the post is off, the car is dead. This is where I'm gonna slide this guy down in between there so that it doesn't make contact. Otherwise you'll hear relays clicking on and off, and you obviously don't want it coming on while we're playing around with the airbag. This step is just to avoid having an airbag light. Okay, so now that the steering wheel is unlocked, this is the hard, it's not hard. Once you get some used to doing it, you've done it a few times, getting the airbag off is pretty easy. When you turn it 90 degrees, on the right and on the left, there's a hole. That hole gets us access to the spring that we need to depress to remove the airbag. So that's why I like to use, some people like to use a flathead screwdriver. I like to use a very pointy, very dense leather punch, basically, because it allows me to get the point right where I need it to release the spring. And I'm gonna show you how easy this is right now. So if I just go ahead and find the hole, get that in there. So there, the spring. There's one half of it right there. So now we can go the other way. Same hole, find the edge of the spring. There it is. So I love the pointy end because I can feel the tip of the spring, and I'm gonna kind of show you what it is we're depressing here as soon as I get the airbag off. So now you need to be careful, because as you can see, there's not a lot of slack on the first airbag plug. We're not unplugging this end. We are unplugging the end from the steering wheel. This is where our little handy curved pick comes in. So we'll be pulling out this little orange retention tab. So just kind of hook it on there and gently pull the locking mechanism out. Now we can get the whole plug out. But that's not the only plug. We have this one at the bottom, which as you can see is routed through the wheel. So unclip it from the two clips. This piece will pull out of the little form-fitted area in the steering wheel. The top clip and the bottom clip, these are just pressure fits. There's no tabs you have to undo, you just pull. That's the scariest part. The first time I ever did that, I thought there was a clip I was missing. You can hear it click in there, but you still just pull it out. Same thing with this one here. These wires are very delicate. Be gentle with it. Grab it on both ends and pull. So these little nubs right here, that nub and that nub, they are clicking into here and here. So essentially what we're doing when we get our pick in there, and I'll show you this from the backside now. So if I get this in there, do you see how I'm just going boop and pushing it down? So I'm going in and then prying down like this. So anyway, that's why I use this and not a flathead screwdriver. This is the hardest part of the job as far as I'm concerned. Next thing you're gonna do is you're gonna pop open your cup holder. The R8 has a perfect spot to stick screws and stuff because there's nowhere for anything to fall. So this is where we'll be putting all of our screws. All right, so now we need to remove this metal plate right here. This is actually the horn, believe it or not. So these three screws right here are what take it off. This is a T20. When you remove it, be careful because of the fact there is like a metal spacer that likes to just sort of fall out with it. Just gonna take out all three of those and set those in my cup holder. Now there is springs behind there, so you might feel it pushing back against you and moving around. That's perfectly okay. Remember the airbag's mounting to it, and the airbag is also the horn button, so that's why the whole thing moves around. All right, so once those are loose, this just pulls straight out. There is a spade connector right here. This is the horn ground. Be careful of this wire, you don't wanna break it. Just pull that up. Take this out. There's the springs I was talking about right here. See, one of them fell out, which is perfectly fine. They literally just kind of snap right onto there. So make sure that if one falls out, you catch it. All right, next thing we need to take out is the plastic spacer that was behind that. Again, there is a 12-volt wire right there. This is the other half of the horn. So we need to also remove that. That's again, another just spade spring style. Now what we need to do is we need to remove this one, this one, this one, and this one. These four screws are just holding in the ring. All of this plastic mechanism here is the only thing being, like your buttons and your nav and all that is being connected by these four screws. So they're just a pressure fit on the side. They sort of slide over and squeeze. Now this is the part where you're just gonna slowly sort of work it out. So I've seen people say to get panel remover tools and start spreading them in here. I don't wanna damage any of the trim or the plastic. So you can just sort of pull on the top, pull on the bottom. You hear that first pop? There are technically two pin, like pop pins. They're like a, I don't know, a T type of pin. And you'll see in the bottom and in the top. So I got the bottom ones out, as you can see. See the whole bottom piece moving here? See how this is now gapped? We want to do the one on the top. You should not be using a lot of force. If you feel like you're having to really yank on it, that's a problem. You can see there's one of them right there even. See the little silver piece going into the foam part of the steering wheel? Just go around, taking my time, and there you go. So the only thing holding it together now is this cable and this cable with the white connectors. These are your shifter paddle cables. So you need to be careful with these. These are very fine, delicate wires. So we need to release this, and this is where a flathead might come in handy. But you see how I just sort of pushed it in like that, and it comes right out. So the little release part that you need to push is right there. Now on the right paddle, it's on the left side. And I'm just gonna yank by the wire gently. There we go. This is everything that controls the car right here, basically. Now, because of the fact that I've already changed out my shifters, I'm gonna demonstrate on this one right here. I have to use the Allen key that came with it. This is where you would be using your T10, because T10 is the size bolt that you're gonna be using to remove the stock shifter. So pretend your stock shifter's in here, you'll see the silver head screw, then you'll use that to remove it. In this instance here, I'm gonna use the one that came with it because I'm using the Allen screw that came with the MadTrace shifters. Now to get it out, it's really simple. You just pull. So there's a little hook right here. You'll see that when this comes out in a second. You pull it out and away. So do you see how you just have this hook right here? This is exactly how the stock shifter is. And then you've got this hole that lines up right there. So when you go to put this in, now we'll say you just took your stock one out. You go to put this in, we'll start with the right. The right is the positive. And this is foam. I know people realize this. This part of the steering wheel is foam. You just gotta line that up and push it in. So it's kind of this motion. It's kind of in and then turn it as it comes in. So that hook hooks into right there, and this hole lines up with that hole. So now in the reverse, line this up, push. You might feel some resistance because it's foam. There we go, it's in there. Now is when you will follow along with exactly where I'm at. You've got your screw, your Allen head. And we're gonna tighten this down to its firm. If you go too tight and you strip it, that's always gonna be in there. But anyway, that's installed. Do the same thing with the left. We will do everything in the reverse. And this is where people normally in their video will go, just do everything you did backwards. But there's some things you need to consider when you're putting it back together. So we'll go ahead and start with that now. Plugging these in is a little more difficult than unplugging them if you want to know the truth. So line it up. Once you get it started, I'm gonna use the Allen key because it's got the round end to make sure that is seated all the way down. Get this one in here. Plug is down. Technically our shifters are now installed. This is the part where you need to be careful because you see how we have these hollow parts right here? The cables want to stick out into that area. And if you're not careful, when you put it back down, you'll pinch these wires and they'll be sticking out. They could stick out the top, the bottom, or in this area. So this is where you just want to start lining it up, make sure everything's clear and not being pinched anywhere. So if you look down inside this hole right now, you'll see that wire is hanging out in there and wants to be pinched. You see that? That's not good. So now I'm gonna just sort of tuck it behind the buttons. There is a hollow enough area behind the buttons to tuck the wire so that it doesn't get pinched. The left one I got lucky, it just lined up perfectly and it's not sticking out. See, it's perfect in there. Make sure the bottom here is lined up because there is two in the bottom right here. So the areas it's going to be clicking in is right here, right here, right here, two at the top, and then one on the right. So if you look here, there's a kind of a tab on the bottom right here. That tab fits in this groove in the bottom of the steering wheel. So since I just pulled it out entirely, I now need to make sure that I have not made my wires now stick out and get pinched. That's why you need to be careful and make sure none of the wires are sticking out anywhere being pinched. They're very small, delicate wires. It's only those tabs in the middle that's holding it on. So there's that, everything's in, there's no gaps. Now we'll just literally go in the reverse. So we take our black ring, line it up with these three posts right here. Actually, first we'll plug in the positive on the left, the red wire. Line that up on there. Now we're gonna take our horn spring, hook the ground up to it. And now we're gonna make sure these three springs line up on the 3 round areas on the black bracket. Now we're gonna take our spacers, start putting these in. Just get them sort of loosely fitted, that way they'll stop flopping all around. This is where we get our T20. I like to start on the bottom, it's a little easier to get to. The little spacers will only fit one way too, by the way. I don't know if you realize, some people don't realize that, so they say it doesn't go in. It does. If it's not going in, turn it 90 degrees. Okay, so the metal horn bracket, you can tighten down until it bottoms out. That spacer will stop it from going any deeper than it needs to. It's only a few millimeters of travel for the horn to engage. Now that the airbag and mounts and the horn is back in, we got to put back in our 4 T20 screws that we removed around the perimeter of the plastic. Okay, so everything's mounted back down, screwed in. I like to start when it comes to putting the airbag back in, make sure the airbag word is at the bottom and you're not trying to put it in upside down. I like to start with the bottom harness. It has the most slack. So this guy here, we're just going to plug in, put it back into its little cubby. I'm not explain it. It's a little cutout in the steering wheel for it to hide in there. Route this through the little clips right here that are built in. This keeps it out of the way so it doesn't get bound up with anything. Okay, plug in the top harness right at the top of the wheel. Clicks in. Take the yellow plug, make sure the orange lock is still out. Line this up, push it until it clicks, push in the lock. Take your airbag mount, the little ball nubbins here or whatever. Remember they line up at the 2 openings inside the airbag or the horn mechanism. Once it's lined up, click it in, and there you go. So now all you have to do is put your negative terminal back on your battery, make sure it's nice and tight, and then you will have probably lost your auto window function, auto up and auto down. I'll show you how to do that next once I get my battery terminal back on. All right, so now that everything's together, the MMI is on, the button is working, we're gonna start the car, we're gonna make sure that the paddles work. So what I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna tell you now because it's too loud otherwise, I'm gonna put my foot on the brake, start the car, I'm gonna put it into gear, and then I'm gonna manually shift with each one, and you should see it go from drive to M for manual. Okay, now you might have noticed auto up and auto down are not working on the button. So roll the window all the way down. Now roll it all the way up. When it gets to the top, hold it for 10 seconds. 10 whole Mississippis. I know this is the agonizing part of it all. Now we have our auto function back. That's literally all you have to do, and that's true for any car whatsoever. Now the right window, it's the same problem. They're independent, right? So see, auto down, not working. So roll it all the way down, roll it all the way up. 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on until you get to 10. I'm sure you guys know how to count to 10. If you can't, you shouldn't be doing this. Now, our function's back. All right, there you go. You guys wanted the video. It's just that simple. If you don't want to pull your negative terminal off and you have VDCS, you could just now plug in your OBDS or your VDCS through OBD2, clear your airbag module, you're up and running. There you go, guys. Thanks for watching. Hope you learned how to do something today.